Disclaimer. This is an original fan fiction episode inspired by the publicly reported August 11th, 2026 story Beats of the Young and the Restless. It is not an official CBS script or transcript. The morning sun rose over Genoa City, but there was very little warmth in the hearts of the people who woke up that day. For some, it was a morning of difficult decisions. For others, it was a morning when emotions that had been carefully buried finally threatened to surface. And for Nick Newman, it was a morning that would force him to confront a truth he had spent far too long trying to escape. At society, Devon Winters sat quietly at a table, staring at a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. He had barely touched it. Ashley Abbott noticed immediately. She approached the table and studied him. "You look like someone who hasn't slept," Ashley said. Devon gave a tired smile. "I didn't." Ashley sat across from him. "Is this about Winters?" Devon looked toward the window. "It's about everything." He paused before continuing. "I keep asking myself what my father would want." Ashley understood. "Neil?" Devon nodded. "I've spent so much time trying to protect what he built, the company, the family, his legacy, but maybe I've been protecting the wrong thing." Ashley leaned forward. "What are you saying?" Devon finally looked at her. "I think I'm ready to walk away." Ashley was surprised. "You're serious?" "Completely." Devon explained that the decision had not come easily. He loved his family. He loved what Winters had represented. But the constant pressure, the conflicts, and the feeling that he was carrying a responsibility that no longer belonged solely to him had finally become overwhelming. Ashley reminded him that leaving did not mean abandoning Neil's memory. "Sometimes honoring someone means choosing your own life," she said. Those words stayed with Devon. Across town, Victoria Newman was having a very different kind of morning. She stood alone in her office, trying to hold herself together. She had always been known as strong, controlled, confident. But lately, everything seemed more complicated. Family pressure had been building. Business problems had refused to disappear. And the emotional weight of everything happening around her was becoming difficult to ignore. Victoria wiped away a tear just as Kyle Abbott entered. He stopped when he saw her. "Victoria." She quickly turned away. "I'm fine." Kyle didn't believe her. "You don't have to pretend with me." Victoria looked at him. "That may be the problem." "What?" "I've spent my entire life pretending I'm fine." Kyle moved closer, but kept his distance. "You can talk to me." Victoria hesitated. "I don't know why I'm telling you this." "Maybe because you need someone to listen." For the first time that morning, Victoria allowed herself to stop pretending. She talked about the pressure, about family expectations, about how exhausting it was to constantly be the person everyone expected to have answers. Kyle listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. And that made Victoria feel safer than she expected. "You're different today," Kyle finally said. Victoria smiled sadly. "Maybe I'm finally admitting that I'm not always as strong as everyone thinks." Kyle told her that vulnerability wasn't weakness. Their eyes met. For several seconds, neither spoke. The tension between them became impossible to ignore. Kyle leaned slightly closer. Victoria didn't move away. Their faces were only inches apart when the moment was suddenly interrupted. "Victoria!" Jack Abbott's voice came from the doorway. Both of them immediately stepped back. Jack looked from Kyle to Victoria. His expression changed. "What exactly is going on here?" Kyle immediately answered. "Nothing." Jack raised an eyebrow. "That's usually what people say when something is going on." Victoria sighed. "Dad, please." Jack looked at his son. "Kyle, I need to talk to you." Kyle nodded. "Sure." Before leaving, Kyle glanced at Victoria. The look said everything neither of them had been ready to say. Jack noticed, and that worried him. Meanwhile, at the Newman Ranch, Nick Newman was fighting a battle no one else could fight for him. He sat quietly, thinking about the choices that had brought him to this point. He knew he had been struggling. He knew the people who loved him were worried. Most importantly, he knew he couldn't keep pretending everything was under control. Then he met Marie. Marie Kirkland had her own complicated history. She understood what it meant to feel lost. She understood what it meant to wake up and realize that the choices of yesterday had created problems for today. Their conversation began innocently enough. They talked about mistakes, regret, second chances. Nick admitted that sometimes he felt like he was constantly trying to become a better version of himself while carrying the weight of everything he had done before. Marie told him that people were more than their worst moments. That statement hit Nick hard. For a moment he felt understood, but understanding wasn't enough to solve everything. Nick knew that. He also knew that he was standing at a dangerous emotional crossroads. He could continue running from his problems, or he could finally ask for help. Later, Nick found himself alone. He stared at his phone. Sharon's name appeared in his contacts. He didn't call. Not yet. He wasn't sure what he would say. Across Genoa City, Devon gathered his family. Lily arrived first. She immediately sensed that something was different. What happened? Devon looked at her. I made a decision. Lily sat down. What kind of decision? Devon took a breath. I'm leaving Winters. Silence. Lily stared at him. You're what? I'm stepping away. Devon, you can't be serious. I am. Lily struggled to understand. This company means everything to you. It did. And now? Devon looked down. Now I need to find out who I am without carrying everyone else's expectations. Lily's expression softened. You think Dad would want this? Devon smiled. I think Dad would want me to be happy. Lily couldn't argue with that, but she wasn't ready to let him go. Then don't disappear. Devon shook his head. I won't. The conversation became emotional. Devon explained that leaving Winters didn't mean leaving his family. It meant changing the way he lived his life. He wanted to honor Neil without becoming trapped by the past. Lily finally stood and hugged him. I don't like this, she admitted. I know. But I understand. Devon closed his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he felt some of the pressure lift. At Newman Enterprises, Victoria returned to work. She tried to focus on business, but her mind kept returning to Kyle. The conversation, the vulnerability, the almost kiss. She couldn't understand why being around him made her feel so different. She opened a file but couldn't concentrate. Then her phone rang. It was Kyle. Victoria stared at the screen before answering. Hello? Are you okay? Yes. Really? Victoria smiled. No. Kyle laughed softly. At least you're honest. Victoria's smile disappeared. About earlier. I know. It shouldn't have happened. I know. Another silence. But it almost did, Kyle said. Victoria closed her eyes. That doesn't make it right. No. Then why can't I stop thinking about it? Kyle had no answer. Neither did she. Meanwhile, Jack confronted Kyle at the Abbott estate. You need to be careful. Kyle frowned. About what? Victoria. Kyle sighed. Dad, nothing happened. That's not what I saw. Kyle remained silent. Jack continued. You're walking into complicated territory. I know. Do you? Kyle looked at his father. I've never felt this understood by someone. Jack was surprised. That's what concerns me. Kyle asked why. Because when emotions get involved, people stop thinking clearly. Kyle didn't argue. But he also didn't promise to stay away from Victoria. At the same time, Nick's situation was becoming more serious. He knew something was wrong. He knew his behavior had begun to affect the people around him. He had reached a point where pretending everything was normal was no longer possible. Marie found him later. You look exhausted, she said. I am. You should talk to someone. I know. Then do it. Nick looked at her. You make it sound easy. No, I make it sound necessary. Nick smiled faintly. You're right. But his smile faded. I don't know if I can fix everything. Marie answered gently. You don't have to fix everything today. Those words gave Nick a small sense of hope. However, Nick knew he had to make a choice. He could continue down the same path. Or he could finally reach out. He picked up his phone. This time he called Sharon. When Sharon answered, Nick was silent for several seconds. Nick? Sharon. She immediately sensed something was wrong. What happened? Nick took a deep breath. I need to talk. About what? About me. Sharon didn't hesitate. Then come over. Nick closed his eyes. Okay. For the first time that day, he felt like he had taken one small step in the right direction. Back at society, Ashley met with Devon again. She could tell the decision was still hurting him. You're second-guessing yourself. Maybe. Why? Because walking away is easy. Living with the consequences isn't. Ashley smiled. That's true. Devon looked toward the window. What if I regret this? Then you'll make another decision. He laughed. You make everything sound simple. No, I just know that life doesn't come with permanent decisions. Devon nodded. I needed to hear that. Later, Lily spoke privately with Devon. I was angry when you told me. I know, but I'm not angry anymore. Devon looked at her. Why? Because I realized something. What? You've been trying to carry everyone. She smiled. Maybe it's time we carried you. Devon's eyes became emotional. That means more than you know. At the Newman Ranch, Nick arrived to meet Sharon. She didn't lecture him. She didn't demand explanations. She simply listened. Nick admitted that he had been struggling again. He admitted that he was afraid of disappointing his family, afraid of losing control, afraid that the people who loved him would eventually give up. Sharon told him that asking for help wasn't failure. It means you're choosing to fight for yourself. Nick nodded. I want to. Then start there. The conversation wasn't a magical solution. It wasn't supposed to be, but it was a beginning. Meanwhile, Victoria and Kyle met again. This time they stood outside the Newman offices. Victoria looked at Kyle. We need boundaries. Kyle nodded. I agree. Because this could hurt too many people. I know. She took a breath. But I don't want to pretend that nothing happened. Kyle looked at her. Neither do I. Victoria smiled sadly. That's what makes this so difficult. Before either could say more, Jack appeared. Victoria. She turned. Jack. Jack looked between them. I think we need to have a conversation. Kyle immediately knew what was coming, but Victoria surprised him. No. Jack looked stunned. No? This is my life. Jack's expression softened. I know. And I appreciate that you're trying to protect me. I am. But I need to make my own choices. Jack nodded. I understand. Kyle looked at Victoria with admiration. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was finally standing up for herself. As evening approached, Genoa City became quiet. But beneath that quiet, the consequences of the day's choices were already beginning to spread. Devon had chosen a new direction. Victoria had admitted feelings she couldn't easily explain. Kyle had realized that his connection with Victoria could change everything. And Nick had finally acknowledged that he needed help. None of their problems were solved, but each had taken a step. Sometimes that was enough. At the Abbott estate, Jack stood alone. He thought about Kyle. He thought about Victoria. He thought about the complicated history between the Abbotts and Newmans. He knew this story wasn't over. Not even close. At the Newman Ranch, Nick sat quietly after his conversation with Sharon. He looked at his phone. There were several missed calls. He didn't ignore them this time. He answered one, then another. Small steps, one at a time. Across town, Devon stood outside the Winters office. He looked at the building one last time. Neil's memory was everywhere. Devon smiled. I'm not leaving you behind, Dad. He took a breath. I'm just finding my own way. He walked away. Meanwhile, Victoria stood near her window. She looked out over Genoa City. Her life had changed in ways she hadn't expected. She knew there would be consequences. She knew people would judge her. But for the first time, she wasn't trying to control everything. Her phone buzzed. A message from Kyle. "Good night, Victoria." She stared at it. After a long pause, she replied, "Good night, Kyle." Nothing more. But both knew the conversation was far from finished. The camera would move away from Genoa City as the night settled in. 4 lives, 4 difficult choices, and 4 stories heading toward a collision. Because in Genoa City, one decision never stays isolated for long. Devon's departure from Winters could create a new power struggle. Nick's decision to seek help could force his family to confront painful truths. Victoria and Kyle's growing connection could become impossible to hide. And Jack was already watching. Tomorrow would bring new questions, new confrontations, new secrets. And perhaps the biggest question of all, how long can Genoa City keep its fragile peace before everything explodes again? The answer would have to wait until the next episode, to be continued.